He kōna ipurangi tēnei nā te reo irirangi o Aotearoa.
No mai whakaronga mai ki te aotai whenua. Welcome to Country Life. Ko Janina Schwanika, tēnei.
G'day, great to have your company. I'm Duncan Smith. Today, Cosmo meets a Southland retiree who takes injured birds of prey under her wing.
Then I take you from shedding sheep in Hawke's Bay to sheep in a Wairarapa milking shed, where the Ravenwood family is branching into new sheep dairy products.
But first, it's that time of the month where we give farmers and growers a ring around to see what's been happening. And parts of Northland, Te Tai Tokerau, have also been under pressure due to dry conditions, which have left water levels in dams and springs low, though that may be changing. Many dairy farmers have been supplementary feeding maize and palm kernel. Our agent contact says many herds have already dried off a couple of weeks early, which is unusual. Despite the dry conditions, he thought most were quite happy with good beef prices, especially at the recent weaner fairs, and a strong dairy payout. In Pukekohe, stable, low rainfall weather has continued. Much of the district has turned brown, but irrigation has helped some with grass and crop growth. Weather-wise, it's been a good run for vegetable growers and orchardists.
Waikato farmers say forecast rain will be critical for milking into May and getting an autumn bank of feed for winter. Many dairy herds will likely be dried off early, says our livestock agent contact. Cull cows and non-pregnant or empty cows are being sold, with most farmers down to rock-bottom minimum numbers. It's made all the more important by the maize harvest having finished and new pasture being planted. Supplementary feed supplies are also starting to run low. Meanwhile, the dry has helped make for a great harvest for Bay of Plenty kiwi fruit growers. Our grower contact says they've been having such a good run, and the industry is well ahead of what was planned. Shipments are heading out with about 1/3 of the gold harvest underway, and picking of greens having just started. She says volume and quality has been good across all varieties. Some forecast rain will be welcome news in terms of refilling dry soils and also giving pickers and packers a break.
In drought-hit Taranaki, some recent rain has seen fields green up, but a good dump is still needed with pasture cover low. Fertiliser is yet to go on as it's still too dry. Our dairy contact says many coastal properties have destocked and some herds are being partially dried off, and it'll be a shorter season for many on the coast. A lot of supplementary feed, mostly pasture silage and palm kernel, has been brought in, and maize has just been harvested. Good rain, which is forecast, will help them grow feed for the winter with good soil temperatures. East Coast Te Tai Rāwhiti farmers have been busy weaning calves, and most have the rams out. Our farmer contact says rainfall has been good and everyone has a decent amount of feed. Most farmers seem to be making a bit of money, which is a nice change after the last few years, and has seen the mood more positive. The region is set to celebrate its A&P show in Gisborne this weekend. It marks 150 years and it's a royal event.
It's a hive of activity in Hawke's Bay, with trucks busy transporting freshly harvested apples and grapes. This year is set to be a fantastic season for both. Maize is also coming off, though yields are back a bit following a dry spring. Our farmer contact says the region's reasonably green now, though some parts are getting dry. Very little supplementary feed was made during the spring, so things were pretty tight, but good growth over summers helped some build up supplies. Things are in good order across Manawatu. The coastal parts of the region and Rangitikei are very dry. The rams are out now, and most are happy with body condition scores of their sheep. Crops are also coming off. Most have grown enough feed to build up supplementary supplies. Some have even shipped some off to neighbouring Taranaki. Interest rates coming down and a good dairy payout have seen many catching up on fertiliser spending and deferred maintenance.
Wairarapa has been the odd one out, says our farmer contact, with good conditions including fairly consistent rain until recently. Feed quality and availability is good across the region, though river levels are getting low. It's been more of a challenge for croppers with the wet weather. The mood is more positive though. Across Cook Strait to Tasman, Te Tai o Aorere and our fruit grower contact in Richmond was packing feijoas he'd picked yesterday. He says it was a good time to be in the shed too, as it was raining outside. Most apple growers are harvesting mid to late season varieties like Jazz and Red Braeburn, now that the early Ambrose and Royal Gala varieties are in the bag. Taylor's Gold and Burabosque pears are also coming off, while irrigation is winding down in most orchards. Due to a heavy crop of apples and the struggling economy, the local market is flooded with fruit.
A sheep and beef farmer in Marlborough says his hill country farm near Blenheim is very dry, but it's not unusual for this time of year. Rams are out with the ewes on lower country, and the ewes are in tip-top condition, so he's hoping for good pregnancy rates. Calf sales have been very strong, with 6-month-old calves selling for $1,100 to $1,200. A lot have gone to the North Island, where they'll be fattened up and sold 14 months later for nearly double the price. In vineyards, grape harvesting is well through, and in terms of tonnes per hectare of grapes, it's been one of the heaviest on record. One grower says his 12-hectare block of Sauvignon Blanc grapes is capped at 16 tonnes a hectare, but this year it's produced 25 tonnes. Anything over the cap is dropped on the ground. The surplus grapes haven't gone to waste, though. Hoggets love them and are feasting in between the harvested vines. A good dose of rain this week on the west coast was welcomed by the Lake Brunner farmer we spoke to. The grass is finally coming away after an unusually dry summer. Milk production is faring okay, despite the lack of quality pasture. Our farmer contact says she's been feeding out tons of supplementary feed. TB testing's done, and with pregnancy testing results back, dairy farmers can work out how many cows to keep over the off-season and how many to sell off. Lime's going onto paddocks, and people are effluent spreading and subsoiling to air out the soil and reduce compaction.
Dairy farmers in Canterbury, Waitaha, are having a great season, with good grass growth coupled with a record payout. Sheep and beef farmers are similar to dairy in that early in the season it was looking ominous for a dry summer, but the rain started and it hasn't stopped. Feed is plentiful, lambs are big, prices are good, and ewes are about to go out to the ram in tip-top condition. Arable farmers have had a tough season with very few hot, dry days to harvest crops. Costs are also increasing and incomes remain flat. With harvest nearly done, many have their calculators out. Central Otago is sitting pretty after getting 70 millimetres of the wet stuff last month. Normally, March only gets about 25 millimetres. Contractors are still cutting hay for baleage, and winter crops are shooting out of the ground, with kale and rape already at knee height. Prices were firm at Wednesday's calf sale in Ormako, with the top price for a steer coming in at $1,400. Crop farmers are busy harvesting barley in Murihiku, Southland. Most of the wheat's in the silo, and oat harvesting will get underway soon. On sheep farms, the rams are about to go out, while some dairy farmers are moving from twice-a-day milking to every 16 hours. Our contact in Edendale says he's been undersowing this week. This involves direct drilling half the rate of grass seed into grazed paddocks. The cows are still producing 1.8 to 1.9 kilograms of milk solids per day. The farmer said despite the challenging season, milk production is only slightly behind normal. This has come at a cost, though. Supplementary feeding the herd of 650 cows has gone over budget by $100,000.
This is Country Life on RNZ National 101 FM.
Now, we've heard there are quite a few Country Life listeners around the world, downloading our podcast from places as far afield as the Isle of Skye, Montenegro, Iceland and Dominican Republic. And, of course, many places from around Aotearoa, New Zealand. We'd love to hear where you're listening from, so do let us know. Better still, send us a photo of your place or a voice message, or both. Where are you, and what interests you about rural New Zealand? Tell us. We may even share it with our listeners here on the show. You can email us at country@rnz.co.nz. That email address again, country@rnz.co.nz.
Covering just under 250 hectares at the top of the Esk Valley in Hawke's Bay, Glenlands Farm has been in the Martin family since 1970. Dean's built on the work started by his dad, though these days things look a little different on farm. I'm with Dean Martin on the family farm in Hawke's Bay, just off State Highway 5 at the top of the Esk Valley. Navigating its steep and still cyclone-impacted terrain, he's showing me his stud rams. don't mind the pitter-patter of the rain on the top of the side-by-side, Dean's moved to a shedding sheep breed, the Sheep Master.
This is Dean Martin, Glenlands Farm. I've been here all my life. The parents bought the place in 1970, so I was brought up on the farm. I went into partnership with the parents in 2007, and my wife and I took over in 2014.
What can you tell me about the rams we're looking at here?
These are our sheep masters. They're a new breed to New Zealand. We just imported the semen 3.5 years ago. So we were looking to put some extra frame and growth into our Wiltshire ewes and lambs. So we looked to Australia to see what they were doing over there. We tried the Australian whites and didn't really like the results of that. Settled on using the Sheep Master.
And what is it that made you decide, you wanted to move to a shedding sheep?
Yeah, the big thing is getting older, and when I was in my 20s I didn't mind crutching and shearing and stuff, but in my 50s it's not so much fun anymore. So yeah, just having a shedding sheep takes that work out of it. The wool's, we're losing money on the wool, and there's a lot of extra costs with the wool as well, with having to dip for fly and lice and that as well. So there's a lot of extra times the sheep basically coming in the yards just because they got wool. And last year there was quite a few people putting them over their wool sheep just because they've basically had enough, and slowly going to breed up into a shedding flock. Hopefully a lot of them will come back and have some confidence to try a few more this year. Yeah, I mean, it's a shame that we have to go this way, that wool's such a great product. It tells a lot of good stories with environment friendly product. You think in this day and age that natural fibres like that would be all the rage, but people rather wear plastics and stuff instead.
Dean says the Sheep Master stands out because it prioritises lean meat production and minimises fat content. It also works in well with the regenerative agriculture principles he switched to on farm, something he says was first started by his dad.
Really, it started sort of way back in the 80s. My father, he changed to dicalcic after years and years of putting superphosphate on, and he used to say that superphosphate went on before we got fed, sort of thing. That's our
his approach.
Yeah. But then he saw that cow pats went breaking down out on the farm and the soil life was going backwards, sort of thing. So then he decided to change to dicalcic. So he did that in the late 80s, and then what really spurred me on was the drought we had in 2007. I just came back onto the farm as a partner and basically shipped all the stock off because we were so dry. And then we started doing dairy grazing after that as a way to replace cattle that we'd sold. So I just started playing around with the grazing of them, and the first year I did 2 lots of 100, and then the next year I put the mobs together and just left the breaks pretty much the same and doubled my grazing ground, and had similar rainfall, and it was just like, well, I've got so much more feed this year, what's going on? And then about the same time I come across guys like Greg Judy and that in the US. Yeah, all of a sudden their stuff made sense. So I sort of already come to that sort of realisation myself. The whole thing about regenerative grazing and stuff is match your grazing to what the weather's doing at the time, and so reacting to a dry period and extending your rounds out and helping you to get through those dry periods. Part of the philosophy of a lot of the regen is not to be doing the same things all the time. I decided to mix it up by not rotating this year and set stocking and try and densen up the pastures a bit. We just, like all farmers, we're just doing the best with the resources we got, and regen's just a different way of looking at everything. And a lot of farmers that aren't doing regen, they're still trying to do their best, even though some people might perceive them as not. And it does take a fair bit of confidence to actually go and change your whole farming systems when something's been working. People are carrying a lot of debt with the banks, and it is a risk to change. So not everyone's in a position where they feel comfortable to do it. But it's one thing, people can start slowly and just trial on a little area of their farm and just change the grazing and see what results they get without taking too much risk rather than changing the whole system.
That was Dean Martin. I was speaking to Glenlands Farm in Hawke's Bay. He's fairly passionate about regenerative farming practices and also provides consultations and farm tours. You can find out more on our webpage, rnz.co.nz/countrylife.
Now we're heading to Southland, where Gloria Harris runs a Little Owl and Morepork rescue service. The recovering birds are homed in 3 large aviaries, overlooking a sheep paddock on her 10-hectare farmlet near Invercargill. Cosmo Kentish Barnes is there to find out more.
Most of my work's between November and February with the young owls, the babies, because people are clearing away their wood piles that have diminished over the winter months, and they clean them up in the summer, and then they're finding owl nests in them. And of course, once I've pulled the wood pile apart, what are we going to do with these chicks we've just found? Because they cavity dwellers, they don't tend to build a nest some put nests in trees, but a lot of them would just find a cavity somewhere and that's where they have their chicks. So they get brought to me, so I raise them, and once they can master the test flight down my hallway, so I know they can fly well enough, they come out to the aviary until they're up to weight, and then I pull down the soft release door. And when the owl's ready to go, they'll come up and look at it. Yeah, they're a bit suspicious for a while, and then they fly. No kiss, thanks very much for everything you've done, nothing. They're just gone.
Do they ever come back?
No, not sentimental at all. They're a very solitary bird, really. So once they come into the aviary, I'm really hands-off unless I'm weighing them or have to do something with them. But I just put their food in and I leave them to it. They go wild very quickly once they're in the aviary.
Before we talk about the owl in the aviary in front of us, tell me how it all started. Why did you first start rescuing these birds of prey?
I got shown one on the up by the power pylons, and mentioned it to a friend who looked after the aviaries at Queen's Park, and she said, I get owls in all the time. And I said, I'd love to raise one. So she said, I'll send the next lot round to you. So she did. And that's where it all started. She told me how to feed them, and I've developed a bit of a menu for owls since then. And I've sent that round to the vets and SPCA and any other agencies that might end up with some in, just on what to feed or what not to feed, that sort of thing. So, and how to go about it. And it's been really good. It's just grown like topsy, really.
How do people who find owls find you? Because you're at the end of a long gravel road.
I know, it's a little private gravel road, but it's quite close to the city. So Racecourse Road's just over the other side of those trees there. But sometimes people will go on social media and say, I've just found an owl, where do I take it? And then you get a whole herd of people saying, take it to Gloria Harris. And, sometimes they have to be put down. I've got a really good vet up the road, and if they need to be put down, I take them to her. Or even to be evaluated, if they've got a broken wing or something like that, I'll take them up there. Yeah. Bushhaven covers the cost for that, so I'm pretty lucky on that. But
Bushhaven is another place where birds are cared for and released.
They rescue native birds like kereroo, tui. Yeah.
And how many types of owls are there here in Aotearoa, New Zealand?
Officially, there's two classed as native. So you've got the morepork and the little owl, and these are deemed to be native now. They were imported from Europe in the early 1900s, and they were brought in to help protect the crops in Canterbury, and they decided that they didn't really want to be there, and they migrated south. So they're quite strong in Christchurch south. And we've also got barn owls. So in Auckland, they were finding barn owls in a certain paddock apparently, and they worked it out. It's where the planes from Australia were coming in on the flight path where they dropped their wheels down, and these owls had gone into the cavity where the wheels are kept, and they'd fallen out, so they'd either be dead or injured when they found them. But some obviously survived. Yeah, and apparently there's a bit of a flock of them up in Auckland now.
And so do you get mostly moreporks?
No, mainly little owls like this guy.
Yeah.
I get the occasional morepork. They're Poppy. They're a beautiful bird, they're absolutely magnificent, but they're quite feisty. These are quieter to work with, or most of them are quieter to work with.
Yes. And how many owls have you cared for over the past, 30 years?
I would estimate probably, given the average that I'd have, probably close to 300.
Yes.
Because some seasons are way busier than others. And I'm quite lucky because I've got some people that help me out now if I get an overflow. They'll take some of them for me, so I keep any that are injured or whatever, and they take the ones that just need to be grown.
This has become a big passion of yours, hasn't it?
Oh, yes.
A labour of love.
Yeah, well, it is really. At the end of every season, I'm sort of, oh, thank goodness that's over, the last owl's been released, And then come November, I've started to think, oh, the owls will start coming in shortly because that's a hatching season when it starts and people are finding baby owls in all sorts of random places. And, if I haven't had any by the end of November, I think, oh, I'm not going to get any this year, so as opposed to the sigh of relief I have at the end of the season. But, they always come. So I've had heaps and heaps that are to the point, oh, God, I can't cope with all this, So I ring these people and they've helped me out. So it's been great.
Now tell me about this little owl in the aviary in front of us.
So this wee guy got hit by a car. He was found in the middle of the road and it was brought to me and I took him up to the vets up the road and both eyes were swollen shut and you could see that the left eye was more swollen than the right eye, and it took 3 days before he actually started opening his eyes, and probably 5 days before they were open properly. But if you look at him now, you can see one pupil's really huge.
He's staring at us.
I know.
His left eye is a lot darker. It looks like he's got a black eye.
Yeah, it does. And he's adjusting to not having binocular vision. So it's harder for them to actually pinpoint where they're going to land or if they're catching prey, because they haven't got that binocular vision coming into it. I had him inside for quite a long time and he obviously was keen to get out and do more, so I thought I'll put him in here. He's here by himself and so he can just come and go as he pleases.
What a beautiful bird. Quite a big owl.
Yeah, well this is as big as they get, but they, the morepork are bigger. But it's funny, the amount of people that ring me and say, look, I've just found a baby morepork, can we bring it to you? Yep, that's fine. And it morphs into a little owl by the time it gets here. So now I say, because I get all excited, oh, morepork, and then when it gets here, it turns into a little owl, which is fine, but a morepork's just the next level. And so now I say to people, what colour are its legs and what colour are the eyes? And they go, the eyes are sort of green and it's got grey legs. Oh, it's a little owl. And they all think they're baby moreporks. So
what colour eyes do a morepork have?
Yellow.
Yellow. And
these
and
are pale green. Yellow legs.
Yellow legs as well. Yeah, so quite easy to tell the difference.
Yeah. And they're a lot bigger. They've got a round head too, like a tennis ball, whereas the little owls have got a flat head. Yeah, you'll see it when I catch him.
You are going to weigh him now. How often do you do that?
I don't do it very often, but he's been in the aviary for a while and I haven't weighed him since he's been in. He's certainly eating because the dish that I put his food on at night, it's usually empty when I go to pick it up. So if I get mice, he'll get those. But you've got to be very careful that there's no poison. And what I've done with mice I've been given is I freeze them and then I chop them up in half with an axe before I give it to the owl. And if there's any, you can see the blue in their stomach if they've had poison.
Gosh, so you get the old axe out?
Yeah, don't mess with me. I couldn't do it to a live animal, but I don't do rats, so I tell people not to bring rats here because the owls don't like them, which I'm really grateful for because I'm terrified of rats.
So what is the process? How are you going to catch this little owl in the aviary?
We're not on great friendship basis, like he wouldn't come and land on my hand or anything. Because once I go in here, it's quite funny, even the chicks I've raised, they can be really, really friendly and sit on your shoulder while you're feeding them or whatever. But once they come out here, they revert to wild very, very quickly, which is great. I've got a handkerchief here, which is what I'll wrap them up. It sounds silly. It's a man's handkerchief, and I wrap them up in this to weigh them. But when you lie them on their back, particularly with the handkerchief over them, they just lie there still. So once his face is covered, he'll be quite placid.
And then where are you going to take the owl into the house?
Yep, I'll wrap him up like a little Christmas pudding and weigh him on the kitchen scales, and then I'll bring him back out and let him go in the aviary. So I'll go on and catch him.
Gloria is in the aviary and she's walking very quietly towards the owl at the back, and there we are. That was easy, Gloria. Yeah. You've got the little owl in your hand and you've turned it over onto its back and suddenly it's very placid. Now I will take a photograph of this owl in case anyone wants to go onto our Country Life webpage to have a wee look. Now Gloria is just about to put the owl on the scales. Oops.
It's 185 grams with the handkerchief, so if I take the handkerchief off, he's 171 grams.
That's a pretty good size,
It's a
isn't it?
good weight.
Yeah.
It's a good weight.
Now I'm gently stroking this little owl's feathers, and he's just lying there in the palm of your hand.
Yeah.
I can see his heart beating.
But he's not, like he's not panting or stressed.
Quite calm.
The talons are the worst part of them, They can give you a nip if they're feeling antisocial, but it's the talons, they're like needles.
They look
And
very
moreporks.
sharp.
Morepork talons are really feral.
Such gorgeous, dark, big eyes.
There's a bit more green around the eye than what there was, so I'm hopeful that he may regain his sight in that, so it's just going to be a time thing.
His eyelid over that left eye is blinking a lot more than on the other side.
Yeah.
Obviously a bit of pain there.
Could be the light as well.
Is this a full-sized
Yeah,
little
he is
owl?
now. Yeah, he was an adult when he came. He's a younger adult.
And of course, owls are nocturnal.
These aren't strictly nocturnal. You'll see these out sunning themselves on a fence post or on a power line or something any time from about 3 o'clock in the afternoon on. So morepork are nocturnal, but not these guys.
Yes, yes.
They don't tend to hunt in the afternoon, but late afternoon they'll hunt, and at night they hunt. And when I used to work in town, before I retired, I'd be walking along Tay Street after parking my car, and I'd walk along Tay Street to go to work, and I'd see, not every time, but occasionally I'd find an owl feather on the pavement. And you know how busy Tay Street is. And they come round at night to feed off the moths hanging around the lights.
Off the lights?
Yeah.
Flying around.
Yeah.
Owls are often portrayed in fiction as wise creatures. Why do you think that is?
I've got no idea. Probably they look wise.
Those big eyes.
Yeah, I think so. But they're quite a noble-looking bird, They're not goofy. I was told by a guy that used to live on Stewart Island, he had his security lights going. Settle down, it's all right, buddy. He had the security lights going off on his garage at about 2 o'clock in the morning. And it happened several times. And he thought, I wonder what's going on out there. So he stayed up one night. And sure enough, the security lights came on in his garage. And then he saw this morepork come in, feed on the moths that came to the light. And then when the light went off, the morepork did another fly past to activate it again to encourage the moths.
Smart.
I know.
Now the little owl's been weighed and we are heading back over to the aviary on the other side of the paddock. You must get a lot of satisfaction from doing this.
Oh, I do, especially seeing them fly. And I always give them a little blessing before they fly away,
And so when are you hoping to release this owl?
Oh, it'll be depending on how well his eye heals.
And your next job for the day is to drench your small mob of sheep here.
Yes, yeah, fun times. I know how to enjoy myself. So, yeah, I'll be drenching them and changing their paddock. They'll come into this paddock for a bit of fresh grass and, hopefully be all tickety-boo.
That was owl rescuer Gloria Harris, and you can see some photos Cosmo took of the little owls Gloria's taking care of. Go to the Country Life webpage.
Hi, I'm Mark Anderson and I'm a dairy farmer down here in the south. We have adopted regenerative principles on our land and you are listening to Country Life on RNZ National.
There's cow's milk, oat milk, soy milk, even almond milk. But have you ever thought about sheep milk? Well, this Wairarapa sheep and beef farming family certainly have. I paid them a visit. It's milking time out at Fernglen Farm on Wairarapa's east coast. Things look a little different in this dairy shed though. The Ravenwood family made the move to sheep dairy about 6 years ago. incorporating it into their traditional sheep and beef farm out at Homewood. Dad, Jeff, talks me through what's happening.
At the moment we're just milking 350 ewes once a day, and that's just providing enough volume for the market that we've got going so far. We'd like to be doing more, scaling up to 800 or 1,000, but at the moment that's just about where the market is. So the ewes, as they come in, they're just getting about 250 grams of barley, which is grown by the neighbour down the road, just to give them something to do while they're being milked and attract them into the parlour. We only milk once a day, and they're heading back to the paddock now. They're going into turnips for about 3 hours, and then they go onto plantain or chicory for the rest of the day, and we find that's a pretty good diet for them.
We leave the sheep to their milking and head outside, where Jeff explains it's a family affair out at Fernglen. In addition to milking sheep, they run hill country ewes, breeding cows and finish bulls on the 600-hectare farm. Jeff credits son Cameron with the family's move to dairy, and we'll hear more from him later.
We have 3 children, Ben, Cameron and Bailey. They all grew up out here at Fernglen at Homewood, and all been really interested in the farm and what we're doing. And diversification into sheep milking was sort of Cameron's idea, and everyone really got on board with it, and we've all become sort of part of the team that's created the journey that we're on now, that's diversified into sheep milk products and continuously just growing the market. But probably the biggest thing with the sheep milking idea was we were just really sold on the nutritional side of sheep milk, and from a product side we just really thought that it had the most potential of all products that sheep produce, and we thought that there was an opportunity there to create a market and really grow the industry and at the same time restore or improve a lot of the profitability in the sheep industry that we've struggled with over the past 30 years that we've been here. Probably the main reason was Cameron's persistency, and we were really interested in it, and we looked at it quite seriously, and it was sort of, do we really want to do this? And it is very risky, and we certainly talked about it a lot, and it was always Cameron's idea, and he did a lot of research into the nutrition and the environmental benefits of sheep milk, and we were pretty much sold on the idea, but we just had no one to sell milk to, and we thought there just isn't a market there. And so to have to actually build a shed and create a market at the same time, it was pretty daunting, but just because of his passion and his enthusiasm, we got convinced to do it. Because the children were so keen, it really was just a really good option to look at totally new markets and diversify what we were doing. We were doing reasonably good production with what we were achieving in the past, but we still weren't achieving good profits, and we thought this was a way of actually making our business a little bit more profitable and opening up a lot more doors.
A relatively new industry still, there were certainly a few challenges, including the right sheep to start, growing consumer awareness and overcoming strange looks from their neighbours.
It is hard. We did import the gear from Greece in the end just to save on costs and to probably do a little bit more of a budget setup, but it's all been really cost effective, and compared to setting up a cow dairy, it's a very cheap operation. We haven't gone to the real high tech equipment that some of the ones in the Waikato and Taranaki that have done, but we've got a very efficient system that works really well without spending a fortune on it, and I think it's been a good middle of the road decision. Before we even started putting the shed up, we started actually looking for East Frisian genetics, so we bought half East Frisian. We actually bought a few Pole Dorset ewes and a few different crosses, and just started creating a milking flock. And while the shed was being built and while we were developing products, like Cameron's first product that they created through Messi, through the food pilot in Messi, was flavoured milks. His real passion, being a very keen sports person, was providing a quick to digest protein drink for athletes post-game, post-workout. That most of the sports industry uses chocolate cow milk, and we really just wanted everyone to basically take the cow milk out and go with sheep milk, because they had so much more beneficial aspects with the extra protein, the real quick digestion, magnesium and all the other macronutrients. People in New Zealand are very cost conscious, and also it's quite hard to change people's buying habits. They've been buying cow milk or some of them have been buying other alternative milks, and you've got to actually educate somebody about why they would want to change. That's probably the hardest thing, is just convincing people and getting them to try it. And generally when they try it, and they're more than happy to pay the premium that sheep milk requires to be economic. People, they don't look sideways at us so much anymore, and we don't get the weird looks, and people are very supportive, which is really cool.
How does being in the dairy business with sheep compare to, say, meat and fibre, the more traditional sheep farming strategies?
The advantage of milking sheep is you still get the lamb, and if the wool had any value, you still get the wool off them. and they do still grow wool. So we still aim to finish all their lambs. We wean them at sort of 40 days and still finish their lambs. And then after weaning their own lambs, we hope to get 250 litres per ewe out of them over maybe, sort of lactating from September through till, or being milked through till March or April, ideally 250 litres per ewe. I think 300 is probably achievable, and we're probably getting about $2.30 a litre through our business for that, and I think when Spring Sheep was buying our milk off us, they were paying us around about that. If you're closer to the Hamilton processing plant, it's closer to $3, and so no, it can be very profitable, and it's just trying to keep a lid on the costs, and so the more volume and the more head you're able to milk, the less cost per litre. I mean, $1,000 per ewe is actually achievable if we can get up close to that 300 litres per ewe and rear 2 lambs, and so it's quite exciting. And if you can milk 800 or 1,000 ewes and do it at scale and spread a lot of your costs, and I think the economy of scale really makes it quite a profitable industry.
Back in the shed, and the last few ewes are finishing up. After milking, they'll be put out to enjoy a fresh feed out in the paddocks. It's all part of Fernglen's animal husbandry, which has seen them become the first dairy farm in New Zealand to be SPCA Animal Welfare certified. So you do the milking here out at the family farm in Fernglen. What happens to the milk once it's in the tank?
Yeah, we can store it on farm for 3 days, and then we take it into the factory and master it in. We just have a 2,000 litre trailer tanker that we travel it in ourselves, and we do have a 4,000 litre one that goes on a truck as well, that we were delivering milk for Spring Sheep with that. And then it's just pumped into the vats in town, and it has to leave here we generally have it under 2.5 degrees when it leaves here. We try and make sure that it's getting into town no higher than 3 degrees, and then it goes straight into a vat there, and then from that stage the boys just process it, different products out of the vat.
From the farm, it's off to the factory on the outskirts of Masterton, where the milk will be processed. That's where I meet Cameron, who shares his views on how the family became involved in sheep dairy and the nutritional benefits of this dairy alternative.
Hi, I'm Cam Ravenwood. I'm part of the Fernglen Farm family owned and operated sheep milking business, and we basically vertically integrated from grass to pasture to plate. So we do the whole shebang from farming, milking, and then do the product side as well. So we're bottling, turning milk into yogurt, cheeses and that sort of thing.
Definitely a family business like that where everyone's got lots of roles. Your dad sort of credits you with kind of moving into dairy. What was the starting point?
Basically, he cut out an article, it must have been 2015, about sheep milking. It was a really tiny little article. It had not very much information. Sheep milking was something we certainly never considered, and had grown up my whole life in sheep and beef farms. So it just perked my interest a little bit. They were talking about an $18 per kilo of milk solid payout for sheep dairy, which just got me interested, thinking, why are more people not doing it? I think at the time it was around a $7 payout or something like that for cow milk too. Basically from there started looking into it. Me, myself and my brother are both really into nutrition and sport, and as we were looking into it, I realised how nutritious it was, really high in protein and a lot of the key micronutrients, and also the key amino acids for building blocks for muscle recovery and basically everything in your body. So that was just like a big tick that we thought, it's got some potential in that respect. And then just from an environmental perspective as well, it ticked a lot of boxes. Thought we could incorporate it into our farming system without an enormous amount of investment. And also, the other really big positive for it was the fact that research had shown that people can't tolerate cow's milk generally can tolerate sheep's milk, and certainly seemed to be an increasing trend or realisation there's potentially a good market demand for it. So just seemed to tick all the boxes from a raw product point of view, and then we thought we'll just have a wee crack at getting into it and seeing if we can build something.
Were there challenges in getting set up? I mean, I imagine, as you say, people hadn't necessarily at that point known a lot about sheep's milk and its benefits. Was that one of the challenges you faced, or what were some of the barriers?
Some of the key ones certainly is around the perspective or perception of what sheep milk may taste like. Letting people know that yes, in fact, they do actually produce milk was a common question that comes up. But now that we've been going for a little while, we're certainly seeing a lot more people really open to trying it. They've either sort of heard about it or know people that have or are using it, so it's starting to get a lot easier to break down those barriers for people to try it initially. But like overseas, it's a really big, well, it's still small, but it's a lot bigger. And in New Zealand, for whatever reason, we're quite slow to try new things. So initially, it's just was that perception of what it would taste like was probably the hardest challenge, and that's why we initially started with flavoured milk, just to try and ease people into the idea of consuming it. And then we brought out the fresh, just plain milk side of it, and that's going really well. And I just think as we've been into it as well, consumer trends are changing a little bit, and in NZ, people are just a little bit more open to trying new things. And you know, if people are willing to try milk from an almond, then why not a sheep?
Cameron explains what's different about sheep dairy, which contains 60% more protein and calcium compared to cow's milk, as well as all amino acids. Containing only A2 type proteins, it's also seen as more easily digestible.
I mean, sheep's milk is really good from a digestibility perspective. So basically, it's all A2 type protein, which research suggests that it's easier to digest compared to milk that contains A1 and A2 beta-casein. It's also medium to short fatty chain acids as opposed to long fatty chain acids, which is in cow's milk. So just being short of fatty chain acids, it's just quicker and easier to digest. The ratio of lactose in sheep's milk is around about half, because it's so nutrient dense. It's got nearly double the milk solids, but the same amount of lactose. So even people who are sensitive to lactose seem to be like tolerating our milk without any issues. The lactose piece is definitely still case by case. I'm not guaranteeing that anyone who's lactose intolerant will be able to have it without any issues, but certainly the feedback that we've had from customers who are that way have had very few that have come back with any issues. So that's on that side, it's really, really valuable. And then nutritionally, it's got around 60% more protein and calcium compared to cow's milk. It's high in magnesium, phosphorus, zinc, basically all your micronutrients. The key amino acids, leucine, from a sport and nutrition or even an elderly perspective, like people that are really need to look at what they're eating, and in both instances need to eat like athletes to maintain their muscle mass, basically. So it's overall, from digestive perspective, nutritional, it's just a really high quality milk, and better than the other milks that are on market in our opinion, just from a raw form.
Now it's time for a factory tour, where Cameron talks me through Fernglen's different sheep milk products, including some of their latest offerings.
Basically, there's this raw milk tank, so 2,000 litre one is the main one we'd use, so we can bring it through, and that just allows us to do, if we're doing we generally do multiple products or multiple batches on the same day, and then in here is a mixed tank if we're doing any flavourings or things like that, and then pasteurising before it goes through to the factory basically, and then that side of it, and then so this is like a level 2 critical hygiene area, so it's not as strict, and then it gets passed on to level 3 critical, which is like suit up, and it gets, it's all important, all the hygiene's important, but even more so in there, just because that's when your final product, and you've got your pasteurised product that's going into packaging and going to be sent out. So,
how much product would you guys be producing in a week, and obviously across your different product range as well?
But over 2,000 litres a week of various product at the moment, and then I guess this is our first season of starting to build up some cheese stock as well, so we've just throwing that into the mix of sort of accumulating, or trying to build up a bit of hard cheese, because it's aged cheese, you need to try and build up a bit of a supply, so we've been doing quite a lot of that as well, just to build up the stocks. The milk's our focus, and it's still the fresh milk's still kind of our key product. We've done a big push in that space just to try and accommodate for the market that can't tolerate cow's milk, because that's really what we really want to capture, is try and take some more market share basically off plant-based alternatives, because initially when we got into it we're real passionate about nutrition, and sheep's milk's really nutritious, but also the digestion of it, so most people can't tolerate cow's milk can have sheep's milk. So when we look at some of the plant-based alternatives out there, we a lot of the nutrients in them aren't actually bioavailable, so it means that people think that they're replacing what they used to drink milk with stuff that's fortified that their body can't actually absorb, so they're actually losing out on a lot of nutrients. So that side of it kind of annoys us a little bit, but also the amount of ingredients compared to single source sort of thing. So, and that's really what we want to just try increase awareness around is in that space. It's just that from our experience, like 99% of people who can't tolerate cow's milk have been fine on our sheep's milk. So, and it's a really good alternative in the sense that it tastes quite similar to full cream cow's milk, froths well on coffees and that sort of thing, and so it's actually a really easy transition. And then it's also got higher, 60% more protein and calcium and that sort of thing, so that's still quite a big focus to try and get that out there more for people, because we've had a lot of customer stories where it's genuinely really changed people's lives from a digestibility perspective. We've had people who've had eczema that's all cleared up, and so we still think there's a lot of potential there to help customers out and just try to build that awareness. So yeah, at the moment milk is our main sort of component, but the yogurt has been building really well. We've got the labneh, which is a Mediterranean style yogurt cheese, or kind of replaces cream cheese, and that's building. And then we've just bought cheese out, which is kind of like a long shelf life product that helps us add value to the milk. But when we in our springtime, basically when we've got surplus milk, we can value add and store it in cheese form basically, so, and then sell that throughout the whole year. So that's been our progression, and as we're developing more, we're certainly looking at more cheeses. So milk we're still pushing and still see a lot more growth potential, but the cheese percentage of our portfolio is certainly going to grow over the next sort of couple of years.
A few years into the business, Cameron says sheep dairy is becoming better understood and sees new opportunities for the industry. He shares his thoughts on the future.
Yeah, next steps for us is certainly just trying to continue to do what we're doing. We're obviously growing what we're doing off our own back and haven't had the luxury of funding or anything like that other parts of the industry have had. We're really keen to see other farmers and be able to get to a scale where other farmers are supplying us, and we are doing a lot in just around export markets, but also further developing the New Zealand market with products that have potential for good volumes. So next steps for us, we just want to continue to grow at a pretty good steady pace, because we know these things actually always take longer than you think, and we don't want to rush ahead of ourselves. It's got to be pretty well planned stages of growth, but yeah, our intention is definitely to keep getting bigger and hopefully be in a position to take on other people's milk, and be looking at exporting as well, because we see a lot of potential with, especially on the digestibility side of sheep's milk, for export. And as far as the industry goes, as a raw product, we think sheep's milk's really good, so it should do really well. Current economic times have been reasonably tough for everyone, so there has been a bit of struggle, especially in places that are looking mostly within the China market, but it's something that is stabilising it, and there's still really strong demand over there. So I think in the long term it's going to be, the industry's going to grow a lot, and hopefully this is just a good way of consolidating and costs, or reassessing costs, because it's times like this where you've got to look at that costings and where your return on dollar spend actually is coming from. So I think in the long run, hopefully it sets it up for a stronger industry, because hopefully this process has helped lean out and help focus in on where the easy wins are and where the most practical growth is.
Being a family business and working together, how do you guys all find that and manage that side of things as well?
Yeah, the family side of things seems to work pretty well. It's probably, as we grow, will probably be a hard transition, because when it's just family, it's pretty easy to say things for how they are and not really sugarcoat anything, so it's pretty easy to get to the point, which, as long as it's managed in the right way, and I think we do, our relationships are still really strong, and we still have Christmases together, so that's always a bonus. The dynamics will change a lot as we continue to grow, but at the moment, it is cool to be able to all be working towards the same sort of goal, and we're all sort of putting in some pretty big hours. So yeah, it's cool just as a team effort to be seeing everyone back up some pretty big shifts, and also just to see that the snowball is rolling, and I guess you're building something with your family, so it was quite nice, yeah.
That was Cameron Ravenwood I was speaking to there at the processing plant in Masterton. I also spoke with Dad Jeff Ravenwood at the family farm, Fernglen, on Wairarapa's east coast. They're still busy with milking and have just started with lambing too. Cameron says this new mob will help them to carry on milking and have year-round supply. You can find photos of the milking session and learn more about the family's foray into sheep dairy on our website, rnz.co.nz/countrylife. And that's it for this episode of Country Life. Do let us know your feedback by emailing country@rnz.co.nz.
Click follow on your app if you don't want to miss an episode of Country Life. And if you enjoyed the podcast, we'd love you to give us a plug on social media or tell a friend about this show. Click the share button in this app to send this episode to a friend.
The stories in this episode were produced and presented by me, Janina Schwanica, and Cosmo Kentish Barnes. In the studio production team today, David Knowles and William Saunders.
Catch you next time.
Ka kite.